Hello and welcome on this new edition of Primetime Watchmaking in the News, and very recently we heard some pretty interesting stories that we will share with you immediately. So let's go. Some new watches, of course, some serious Baselworld updates, some words on the certified pre-owned trend, another watch trip on the way, and of course some other little stuff. So stay tuned and let's jump right into it and start with Omega, which has just released a very special limited edition celebrating the brand's very first wristwatch, launched in 1913. It is limited to 18 pieces, a number in reference of its movements, the 18 Chro, C-H-R-O, and this is where the main originality lies, because these movements are historic movements dating from 1913 that have been recuperated over time by the Omega Museum and that have been totally overhauled by the brand and now encased in a watch paying tribute to these first Omega wristwatches which at the time were used and worn by pilots over their piloting gear. So originally they were pocket watches which had been transformed with the addition of lugs. Thus they're pretty big size, and these watches come in the same size of 47.5mm in a white gold case with hinged case back, with a white enamel dial and two sub-counters at 3 and 9 o'clock, and with the pusher of the chronograph function situated at 6 o'clock. Looks pretty nice and vintagey, but where I'm a bit surprised or confused is the price announced for these timepieces, as I had to read it twice, actually 3 times, because Omega announced these watches at 130,000 Swiss francs. That's some pretty serious money, even considering the work the brand put into restoring these movements, their historic significance and so forth, but I'm pretty sure they did their homework before, and maybe some very passionate and naturally deep-pocketed collectors will see this as a must. So I have to say that I quite like the idea of this movement rehabilitation. It's not the first time we've seen this. For example, quite recently a German brand actually made it their signature with the use of vintage movements used in military pilot watches, but movements dating from the Second World War, so maybe just a little questionable there. And a few years ago, in 2011 actually, we also saw Corum using some 150 movements found in the brand's archives. These movements were as good as new, and they had launched a special limited collection called the Grand Précis. And talking about Corum, well, they just introduced a new collection called La Grande Vie, the High Life. These watches look pretty vintagey too, very classical, and they have this H. Moser feel to them with these sunray colorful dials. There are 3 versions. They come in a 42mm titanium case, hold Celita automatic movements, and are priced around $4,000 US. So nothing too eccentric, but pretty nice regardless. But when it comes to slightly more eccentric, well, let's trust Richemille on this, and the brand just came with a new women collection, the RM71-01 Tourbillon Automatic Talisman, and these timepieces hold for the very first time an in-house automatic tourbillon movement, as the name of the collection implies. So again, always pretty spectacular timepieces with their pretty spectacular price tag too, but that's just normal for Richemille. Jacquet-Droz, a brand that I appreciate a lot, I must admit, well, they just released a new version of its Grande Seconde watch, coming with a power reserve indicator, but the main noticeable feature is the materials used, with this time the case coming in black or blue ceramic and matching Clou de Paris patterns on the dial side. So a mix of modern and tradition, looks rather nice, and both versions of this 44mm diameter watch are limited to 28 pieces. Okay, let's now talk about Baselworld, because I received some very fresh news regarding the 2019 edition, and it really seems like the new management team have heard pretty loud and clear that they needed to upgrade their concept, and the idea of interaction will be much more privileged. So some good news coming from Basel, and to make it short, well, the Atelier, that's the space reserved for the independent brands, which is most probably the most enjoyed section of Baselworld by visitors. Well, now the Atelier will be found directly on the ground floor, but opposite to where the big players are. So much larger space for them, which will also regroup other independent brands that used to be found in the hall too, since this last one will simply be closed. But the news don't stop there, and this is very interesting, as the show will now have a section fully dedicated to vintage watches. Yes, you heard me right. as well as a section presenting the various watchmaking crafts with benches and so forth. So this will for sure be a nice treat for visitors wanting to see more than simply glass windows, and there will also be a kind of forum space with special activities and as well as other stuff which will keep you posted. But I'm sincerely happy of all these developments. I really think it goes in the right direction and will for sure be more interesting for the public to visit. So we'll do, of course, again, some follow-up and keep you posted, because for me it seems that it will be worth visiting again, and I'm looking forward hearing what brands are thinking about this. Okay, let's continue on a very different aspect, as MB&F have just introduced a new certified pre-owned program. That's a CPO if you want to be cool. And now you will be able to buy directly from MB&F second-hand timepieces that come as good as new, having been fully serviced by the brand and coming with extended guarantees and so on. So MB&F have always been pretty serious when it comes to after sales. I mean, for instance, they offer a full service were you to buy one of their watches at auctions. So that's pretty smart and carry, I think. So these CPO initiatives is something I'm pretty sure we'll see more and more in the future. And I'm not talking about the well-known multi-brand platforms that we've talked about recently, such as Watchfinder and the likes. I really think that for these small independent brands, it's definitely a way of reassuring customers in making these first purchases. Because one of the most common interrogation some customers can have when hesitating in purchasing a watch from a small independent brand is, well, am I taking some kind of risk putting that much money in a brand we don't know what will happen to in the near future? Will it survive? Will the watch I'm willing to buy be serviceable? Well, you know, so everything that expresses some kind of sustainability and responsibility by the brand is of course very important in reassuring the customer he's making some kind of rational decision, though I fully get that for many spending tens of thousands of dollars on a timepiece is probably irrational for most. But that's fine by me. So now you can go on MB&F's website and check what is available and benefit from all the securities and guarantees that like I mentioned, and especially find by definition some ultra rare editions impossible to find normally, such as this Razzle Dazzle HM4. Well, we'll most certainly see more and more of these initiatives, and I'm also convinced that more established brands will also join this move in the next few months or years, and even maybe retailers actually. And now talking about also something different, just wanted to mention that we plan of doing another watch trip experience in late September, very early October, and we hope to do so because our last trip, which you guys haven't seen yet, well, we should start publishing this at the end of the summer period. Well, this was so absolutely cool that we hope to get a second edition on the way still in 2018. We can't disclose yet the full program, still discussing this with some brands, but the only thing I can say is that we plan on focusing on pretty niche and exclusive brands, as well as some other surprising experiences, things that you won't be able to live elsewhere. So for the time being, the idea is to know if this interests a few of you guys, and to do so you can sort of pre-register your interest on our website, URL below again, and we'll see if we can make it happen. I sure hope so. Again, privileged to do this with a small group of people, like 5-8 people at the max, and this time we'll film the entire experience, but the end film will only be shared with the participants, kind of a real private experience. The trip will last 4 days approximately, and count on us for an intense watchmaking program prepared for you. So again, for those interested, the idea is simply to pre-register, and we'll then keep in contact with you directly by mail. Okay, and to mark the end of this first semester, let's quickly talk about business, and I mean general business, because the watchmaking industry as a whole is for sure doing much better, and that rejoices us, of course. We don't only hear this by the brands, and we know that this always needs to be taken with some kind of caution, but also from the suppliers of the industry, which are generally saying to us that their back orders are now quite high. This gives them a bit more visibility. But as mentioned, let's take all this with some caution, because it also seems that some bad habits of the recent past are also being repeated. We know that overstocking the various markets has its dangers, and there are a few signs which unfortunately may make us believe that some of this is already going on now. Will they ever learn? But generally, let's be optimistic, let's wait till year end to draw any conclusions on the matter, and let's definitely hope that sustainability and long-term thinking will prevail. And one last thing, and this concerns our web shop, because we used to have shipping costs added to the price of things bought, but this created sometimes some ridiculous situation, as Swiss postal services are definitely not cheap. But the problem was that our technical backend tool was a bit rigid and obliged us to have the same rule applied for all items. So this will no longer be the case, and all prices will include shipping now. So for instance, this absolutely magnificent t-shirt costs 45 Swiss francs, but to send it to the US costed an additional 50 francs, so more than the t-shirt itself. So, okay, so that was a bit silly, but now with everything included, we will send you the t-shirt for 55 Swiss francs anywhere around the world. Isn't that fantastic? And of course, it also applies to all other items, also, such as our Bergeon toolkits and other little goodies. Okay, so this is it for this edition of Primetime. Hope you enjoyed it. And it's not because it's the summer that we won't have some pretty cool videos coming your way. Actually, we have a lot coming. So thanks for so much for your time. A mega special thanks to our patrons. This really means so much to us. And we'll soon have a pretty nice surprise for all those supporting us, actually. But this will be introduced in a few weeks from now. So all the very best, and remember, viva watchmaking!